Hi, my name is Matt Perez, and I'm here with our participant, Kristen Wendler, and we're going to have our usual conversation. This year, we're doing different, a little bit different than last year, in that we're no longer the host and his guests. We're all participants. We're having a conversation, and we're also trying a solo kind of thing. So it's going to be Kristen and me, and Jose is not going to be here, and then the next one will be Jose, and like that. Okay, so Kristen, good to have you here, and glad you're here. And why don't you introduce yourself? Say a few words about yourself, or a lot of words. Doesn't matter.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, Matt. I appreciate the invitation. My name is Christian Wandeler. I'm a professor at Fresno State University in California. I'm originally from Switzerland, and I really got interested in the workplace through my research in organizations. Uh, when I did my PhD studies, I had the big fortune to be part of a project that looked at over 100 different Swiss companies and what they do to create quality workplaces. And I was particularly interested in what do they do to develop hope. And so over 3 years, I did a lot of quantitative studies, right, where people filled out surveys about their experience in the company, their experience with bosses, their work environment, and then also how their hope develops, how their work performance develops, and how their development of competencies develop.
So
And long story short, I came to the US because I got a scholarship to go to Stanford University. And I got to finish my studies there. And, initially I was just going to be in the US or in California for 1 year. My wife is originally from California. And then we stuck around, and I found a job at Fresno State. And, here we are.
yeah, once you said your wife, I kind of knew what was coming after. Um, in Nearsoft, we have people from France, we have people from all over Mexico. Mexico is pretty big, and and the answer was always, "Well, my wife or my spouse is from here." Yeah, I know the rest, and
Yeah.
so yeah, it's difficult, but that's what we move around. It's sex kind of guides us around where we want to go. So so what did you find out in your studies and stuff like that in terms of what gives people hope?
Yes. So I used a theory called self-determination theory, right?
Okay.
And that was, if maybe you've heard of a book from Dan Pink called Drive. And
Yes.
that's right. And that's one of the theories that he describes. And it's actually in psychology, is probably one of the most researched theories. And it basically says that we have basic psychological needs as humans, right? And when we satisfy those basic psychological needs, we develop intrinsic motivation, right? We are motivated because we want to do things,
Yeah.
right? And those basic psychological needs are autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And Dan Pink calls it purpose in his book, right? But originates, or actually in research, we speak of relatedness. And what I did in my studies, I already had this hypothesis, right, that if organizations satisfy these basic psychological needs, then people should be more hopeful in these organizations.
Okay. So if they were autonomy, what was the second one?
Autonomy, competence,
Okay.
and relatedness, right? And basically, autonomy, and that's how I got into self-managing organizations, right? Because they satisfy a need for autonomy, right? But let's say you have a lot of freedom, but you don't really have a whole lot of skills, right? If you don't have
All
competence,
right.
and there's not really a lot of ways to develop competence or to feel competent, then there's something missing, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing is also with relatedness, right? There's a connection piece, a social piece to other people, or a relatedness to a bigger cause, right? To a bigger purpose, right? And so my study showed is that over time, if you have more autonomy, you're going to be more hopeful, right? But it also depends on the context of competence and relatedness, right? So all three of these are indeed uh, important for the development of hope. And if you as an organization, if you can create environments where people can experience and satisfy these needs, then you tend to have also more hopeful people.
Very
And
good.
there's right, and there's other benefits too, that people tend to perform better. They also tend to be more intrinsically motivated, right? They tend to
Yes.
do things because they enjoy doing them, and they and that's ultimately, I think, what a lot of companies are complaining about, right? When they say, "Oh, we don't have engaged people," or "We want people with an entrepreneurial mindset," right? Or "We want people that have a sense of ownership," right? Those are typically things that companies are striving for, but they're not always well. And one way to help out with that is to satisfy these basic psychological needs.
That's really interesting because at Nearsoft, the company I co-founded in 2007, we did it the other way around. We developed self-management first, and then we got some things out of it. Um, I realized that competence was kind of given because we interviewed for, we did a traditional interview. What do you know? That was the main thing. And but we're big on autonomy and big on relatedness. Not as big as we want to be, but pretty big. And people would develop that part. Since they have the autonomy to do it, they would develop the relatedness to other people, not to necessarily purpose and stuff like that. Um, at Radical, which is what my thing is, um, we start with meaning and belonging, which
Mm,
is the same thing as relatedness, right?
right,
It's the
right.
people based thing, and but that's not enough. Like I discovered in my previous company, it was not enough to give people a sense of ownership. We had to give them, what was missing was the ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And for a long time, they treated me and my partner differently, and they would come and say, "What do you think of this? Are you asking for?" My response was, "Are you asking for permission?" The answer is no. Now, if you're asking for advice, yeah, okay, well, I'll engage. But if you're asking for permission, no. And it was because I was the owner. I was one of the big owners, the people that developed this and all that shit. And and so to change that and to change a lot of the ill society, what you want is, and now I'm selling Radical. Uh, what you want is is to do away with the livelihood. You know, people control us, and all that based on the livelihood. You have to make it livelihood. That's all there is to it. And livelihood takes money, and money comes from a job, right? Nope, not necessarily, but we're convinced that it comes from a job,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that's the thing that has to go away. It doesn't come from a job; it comes from servicing one another, servicing the community and society, and that's where livelihood comes from. It comes through money. There's no question that it's going to come through money. So, but it has to come from somewhere else. It's not just a job. Um, so, what have you done since? Well, you're still at the university. Have you done anything on the outside or any any other efforts that you want to talk
Yeah.
about?
Yes. So what's interesting is when I just finished my PhD, there was my colleague who worked for Gallup, who actually left academia to go work for Gallup to help them with their engagement studies and all that. He told me, "Hey, you got to read this book from Dan Pink. He talks about your research and all that stuff, right?
Yeah,
Not my actual research, but the theories that because my stuff had just come out." And so when I read it, I was like, "Okay, this is great." And I looked at Dan Pink's podcast, and that was shoot 12 years ago. It was like 2011 or 12. But
yeah,
long story short, I just came across Dan Pink, and then he interviewed a guy named Gary Hamel, who
yeah.
was talking about, right. And he, at the time, Gary just had written an article about the Morningstar Tomato Company, right.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Okay. and and and
2009.
Right, and so I was like, "Oh, wow." In my studies in organizational psychology, I had looked at self-managing teams and things like that, but not really at self-managed organizations where there was no official bosses at all, right? So I was really fascinated by hearing this story from Morningstar, where there's no human bosses, right?
Right,
And I said, "Well, on my interest in autonomy, in regards to autonomy, this company should be really high, right? Just because, everybody's their own boss." And so, long story short, they happen to be pretty close to where I live here in California, and I,
right,
I got in touch with them, and was really fascinated by this model, and right, and here it was really, uh, I really loved. The principles that are underneath of it, right? Where there's really a simple and beautiful system where we say, hey, on
yeah,
one hand, we don't use force, right? And
right.
on the other hand, we respect commitments, right? It's
Yes.
like contracts, right? We respect agreements. Um, and there's a lot of philosophical implications about it as well. Uh, but kind of thinking back now, I became a consultant for them, an external consultant to companies who wanted to learn how does Morningstar do their work, right? How does that even work?
Right.
And so I did that for a while I was also at university. And then during the pandemic, I was on sabbatical in Switzerland, and locked up in an old apartment with my family, and I don't know I don't know if I had not enough to do, or if it was just the craziness of the moment. I started the Semco Style Institute for the U.S. Right, so
Okay.
I was always fascinated by the Semco as a case study, and uh, the Semco Style Institute had created uh, a framework about how to explain people how does the SEMCO organization work.
Right.
SEMCO had been saying for a long time that even the people at SEMCO said you can't replicate that, right? We just kind of iterated our way to this. So if we would have wanted to plan this, it would have been hard, right?
Right.
Uh, and that's the interesting part about these organizations that are really human and organic is, how, if you're interested in being a company like that, how do you get there? And I feel the Semco Institute, Semco Science Institute has really developed some very good methods of getting there.
Mhm.
And for now 3.5 years, I was really deep diving into the Semco style world and how that's being adapted around the world with in various countries. And now I'm transitioning over to really taking that step and looking at what I learned from Morningstar, what I learned from Semco, and also what I learned through my own studies, to maybe find a way to that's a little bit less radical, right? But that helps to transition more traditional companies towards a
Right.
more a freer future. Yeah.
Yeah. At Nearsoft, we read Maverick, which was
Okay. Yeah.
the first book that Ricardo Semler wrote, and and that was our guide. That was really our consultant. It's the book,
Yes.
and that was very helpful because there were some things that you didn't know how they were going to end up. We just did this, and it worked. We just did this, and it didn't work, and and that was very helpful to us. I've been a big fan of Ricardo Semler, who's in education these days. He's more into educating people from the ground up, not waiting until they're 40 or 50, but from the ground up. And I think that's going pretty well. So we have that in common, the Semco story. And in any case, there's the thing about self-organization, which you call co-management, because there's no company that organizes itself. There's a bunch of people that form a company and co-manage the goings and of the company and stuff like that. So we call it co-management.
I like that. I really like that, Matt. Because I honestly have never really reflected about the word self.
Mm-hmm.
I only had sometimes a little bit of confusion when we talk about self-management.
Right.
Sometimes people think it's about how you manage your own time and your own efforts, right? So it's that. I think when you look at when Drucker wrote about self-management, but it was more about how managers manage themselves in terms of their schedules and prioritize their tasks and stuff like
Right.
that. So I really like that term, co-management. Yeah.
So co-management and co-ownership.
Mhm.
But I do agree with you that co-management comes first, and or it usually comes first, and it's crazy enough. In that it gives you a sense of, oh, we don't have management. What else is there to do? And at Nearsoft, I got to tell you a story. So at Nearsoft, my partner and I decided how much money to put into next year, to fund next year, so to speak.
Okay.
And he would tell me a number. I would go, yeah, that sounds right. I wasn't. My head is not that way. And then the rest of it, usually 50 or 40%, will give the same to everybody. So if there were $1,000 and 100 people, everybody got $10, including the cleaning lady, which is part of the team. And then one day, actually, no, that wasn't the way it was. It was more based on a formula that my partner had developed that was very complete, very, robust and all that stuff. And nobody understood it, including me. And people would ask me, go ask my partner. I don't know anything about it, but I trusted him, and that was the main thing. And then this guy raised his hand and said, "I don't understand the formula, so I'm going to come up with a new formula." And that's when we went kind of into co-ownership, because that's normally the realm of the owners,
Yes.
But we let somebody else, a team of people, do it, and they talked to a lot of people. They came to a lot of blind alleys and stuff like that. But eventually, they came up with this thing of we divide by n. Whatever n is, we take the number, we put n as the denominator, and what comes out is what people get. And that worked for a long time. I understand that that's different now, but it worked for a long time because it was easy to trust formula. It wasn't something that Roberto and I had cooked in the background or anything like that. It was divide by n. I know how to divide, and that was very helpful. And it's the same thing with Ricardo Semler and what they did at Semco, that they open up the board to have some seats that belong to anybody who signed up for a seat. And they didn't police that. They made it autonomous. if you want to be part of the meeting, you signed up, and when your name came up, you were it. And at least that's the way we understood it. I don't know how it was.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and
that's how.
so
And you
and
would have
so
voting rights too.
and they have voting rights and stuff like that. So the idea that you don't police those things, when you give autonomy, is autonomy. You have to really be committed to autonomy, and to tell somebody, oh, it'd be better if you made a judgment, better. I got that. I'm going to ignore that and do it my own way, and that's hard. That's really hard to do because people will ask you. In my case, they will ask you, what do you think is better, this or that? And you go, well, I think it's better. You decide. I'm not going to decide for you. So yeah, it's co-management comes first, and then co-ownership comes, kind of sneaks in on you. It comes later, but
Yeah.
eventually you have to have co-ownership to be able to not only to deal with situation in the company, but deal with situation in society. I mean, right now we have homeless people, we have climate change, we have I don't know, all kinds of ills, misogyny, and all kinds of ills in society. And I think that by people learning to take ownership of their lives, because that's what they're doing, that all of that will go away eventually. And it won't go away completely. It would get better, because we have a way of making things complicated. And but I think it would make things better overall.
Mhm. So yeah, I think that's the a lot of good that can happen through business, right?
Yes.
Or other organizations as well. So Matt, just to make sure, you guys basically, hey, here's a certain amount of profit at the end of the year that we share with our colleagues,
With
and then
everybody.
we divide it by n. So the if I make $10 an hour or $100 an hour,
Doesn't
the
matter.
profit share check is the same.
It's always the same.
Yeah.
Now, what it turns out, and the reason I suspect the reason why it changed is that money is different than carrots or potatoes or bananas. Um, in that with bananas, you can eat them, you can give them to somebody, you can trade them for a little bit and stuff like that. Money, you can stuff into your mattress, and buy a house or something. So money's a little bit different. So divided by n, what I was never happy with it. I was never happy with it because it left something out. I didn't know what it was. So one thing we integrated into Radical is contributions. So I make a contribution. You all recognize it. Not my boss, because there's no bosses, right? But you all recognize it, and I get RADs for that. RADs is really a percentage. So I own 10% of the company. The other guy, you own 20%. You get twice as much as me. If it's $1, you get $2. If it's $10, you get 20, and like that. So it's a percentage which you can factor anything. You can factor money, you can factor titles, you can factor anything you want through it. And so that's what we came to that thing that I don't trust money, because money has a fixed price. So you take $1 and it says 1 or 5 or whatever in the front. Let's see what I got here. Oh, I got $1. And it says it's got a 1 in there. That never changes. So if I want to raise the price of something, I said $2, $3, $4, $5. And what I'm saying is, no, you get money by having a fixed price is problematic. And so RADs don't have a fixed price. They it's a percentage. And and that cures that problem. So if $1,000 came in and you contributed twice as much, or your recognized contribution were twice as much as mine, then you get twice as much me. That's all there's to it. So we made some improvements on it, but yeah, co-management comes first. It's the easier thing to understand and get a sense of accomplishment out of it.
Hmm. So I'm curious, Matt, have you, when working with Nearsoft, have you had ever the situation where people were a bit hesitant to be involved in the co-management, or weren't interested in the co-management?
We had not in co-management itself. I mean, people at one point people started coming to us because of that. It's like, you guys are different. I want to be part of this. And but for example, we publish all our salaries. Anybody can come in and ask for salaries, and for whatever reason, and so people go, oh, people will know what I make, and they would know if I get a bonus, which is crap, and stuff like that, and they would bail out of it. People could do whatever they want, so they could say, I don't want my salary to be included in that category. And 3 weeks later, come back around and say, I want my salary to be in that category. What do I have to fill? No, you just told me, okay, now your salary's in there. So there were aspects of it that people would shrink because they're thinking fiat, which is the opposite of radical. It's the world that we live in now. It's everything around that, the tree behind you and the hats behind me, that's that. And stuff like that. It's all fiat. And fiat means because I said so. Move the hat from there to there. Why? Because I say so. And if you don't like it, I'll fire you. I'll make it hard for you to make it livelihood. People like yourself, people. I was in computers my whole life, and we didn't have trouble finding another better job. But most people that work at a factory or work at a bending metal, or they have a harder problem, and so they're always afraid of move that hat from there to there or else, and they're always afraid of the or else part. So that's a problem. So we want to get radical as an alternative to fiat. Not a revolution. I'm Cuban. I know what revolutions look like. But as an alternative, if you want to raise money and be a millionaire and make a unicorn and blah, 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 then fine, you can go and do that. But you have an alternative now, which is to share your wealth. You won't be a billionaire or a trillionaire, whatever the heck Musk is, but you can make a lot of money too. So is everybody else, according to the contributions, not because the communist system is because you're there, you get this, everybody gets the same amount and stuff like that, which is probably why the nearshore system bothered me. For just consisting. And what people would do is lean back and do nothing. They would know that at the end of the year, they would get the $3 worth of something. And this is according to contributions. So if you make contributions and other people around you, the people that know you and what you're doing and stuff like that, recognize that a contribution, then hey, it's a contribution. I can lean on that. I did that. And it doesn't have to be about work. It could be, the example I give in the books is of a woman, the cleaning woman, went by this other woman and went to the back of the building and came back. And then she started talking to her. And I was sitting like 15 feet away from the couple. And I, I couldn't help but listening. I stopped what I was doing and I was listening. And she had been dumped the night before by her boyfriend. Um, Weird thing, but that affects people. You know, she was feeling bad. She was playing solitaire. I could see it from where I was sitting. And though they started talking, and I lost track of it. I came back to my work. I'm doing, and then I hear, um, what did she say? She said something like, he's missing it or something like that. And I thought, oh, something good just happened. What it is? And she was a different person. She was now her usual self and telling things and yelling across the desk and stuff like that. Um, that woman, the cleaning lady, did a did a huge favor for that person, and that person would do a huge favor for us because she stopped the solitaire, she put that aside, and she started coding. And the cleanest woman intention wasn't to get her coding; it was just to see how she was doing. And that brings you back to relatedness. That if you see somebody that's not his usual self, you tend to get immersed in what, how come? And and that counts for a lot. That counts for a whole lot.
You know, it's interesting that you had like experience like that. One of the practices at Semco was also to provide support for each other, right?
Yeah,
For employees to be, to lend an ear to each other and be, be supportive. I think that's something that, again, like you said, that relatedness, right? If you feel like, hey, at work, people care about me, right? That
yes,
goes a long way. And to me, it's really interesting to hear I got those questions a lot about co-ownership or how do you allocate that. And I uh, I asked a similar question to Ricardo at the time, because the S- Semco always did profit sharing, but didn't really, as far as my knowledge went, didn't really go into ownership of the companies and things like that. And one of the question was, one of the answers of Ricardo was this: if you want to invest your retirement money, I might you might be better off getting a higher wage, right? And then invest that in your 401k and buy Tesla shares or whatever, right?
yeah,
Or Apple, right? Instead of investing it in Semco, because that might be a better strategy just to diversify your risk,
right,
right?
right, 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 right,
I'm just curious, what do you, because that, and it's an interesting point, right? Some people, they, they want to, I'm curious how you do it because what for me what makes sense is to give people choices, right? To say, hey, if you want to take on more risk or invest in our company, then we want to offer you venues to do that. But we also want to give you freedom if you don't want to do this,
right.
right? If you just let's say if you just want a 9 to 5 job, then that option exists as well. How do you feel about that?
I don't I don't think there's a 9 to 5 job. You don't stop being Christian at 9 and then become Christian again at 5. It doesn't happen. It's Christian going along. The difference is you have no autonomy during that 9 to 5 period, and you have autonomy outside of that. In fact, I bet you make huge decisions in your personal life, buying a house, not buying a house, buying a refrigerator instead of a car, buying a second car, but that you're on your own on that one, right? So that 9 to 5 thing is the fiat, it's the extreme fiat period. Is when You move that from there to there. Why? Because I say so.
Right. Right.
Okay. So that's the big difference. So we've come up with this thing of, there's work life and in real life, and it's all bullshit. Excuse my French. And and it's only one life. The first person you have to be related to, that you have to belong to, is you. That's all you have, right? So you have to belong to you. And when somebody says move that box from there to there, or the hat, I keep putting it with the wrong hand. The hat from there to there is the reason I'm asking the question why is because I may have a contribution to make. I may say, if we move that hat from there to here, that might look better or something. But I never get the chance. I get to move from here to there to there. Because the boss says so, and that's the difference. So that's why I call it an alternative. It's not, let's kill the people that work 9 to 5 and raise people that don't like that. That's a Carl. Well, that's nonsense. Okay, and the important thing is that I do what I feel like, coordinated with my team, coordinated with my community, coordinated with my society. If I decide to kill people, let's kill people. Well, my community may not like that. It may say, no, relax, don't kill people yet. Why do you want to kill people? Okay, I like blood. Maybe you're a surgeon. Maybe you want to cut into people, and you have to go to school for a certain amount of time. And oh yeah, but it was too expensive. No, it's not too expensive in the current system. There are radical universities that allow you to do this. And by the way, the money that you get through RAS is yours. If you want to spend it in our company, fine. If you want to spend it outside our company, fine. By the way, the radical companies shouldn't have are disallowed from having shares. Anything with fixed dollar amount on it. So if you want to invest in our company, make more contributions. There are other ways of doing it, but they're called banners and stuff like that. But the important thing is your money. You can do with it whatever you do with money. I don't know what you do with money. I don't care. That's what you should do. So Semco went a long ways, and this is the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. You don't remember this, but I do. And early 80s was when people were throwing grenades at each other because you're in this class and I'm in that class. And that's what violence and force do, is create that kind of conditions. But there's no need to throw things at each other. And that's what Semco demonstrated. So they did things that make sense to a human being. Okay, let's see if it makes sense at the company, and it did. It did. They were very successful. Hi, they were very successful. What's his name?
This is Luke. And
Luke.
Look, we're just recording. We're recording this. Yeah, he's off of school already, and he wants to play. We'll just finish the recording, okay?
So
yeah, but your point now, we have a lot of. So I'm curious. What do you think of all the the blockchain technology, which kind of makes that with DAOs, right? It makes it all a lot easier to kind of manage this from a technology perspective.
Okay. I'm a technologist. Okay, I should have a sign here. It says techie nerd guy.
Yeah.
Blockchain got me very excited for a while,
Hmm.
but it's not sustainable. As you hang more things on the blockchain, it's just not sustainable. That's number one. Technology wise, in terms of what it's trying to do, it's perfect
Yeah.
for a thing. I was going to show you. We have an app. It's really simple. Here, okay. To assign contributions, stuff like that, and you just pick in the person, and let's see. You see the symbols, the talk
Yeah.
to you, and okay. The upper one is I gave you recognition. I recognize that you did this and you did that, and I give you recognition. The second one is I have to talk to you because you did something that I don't think is appropriate. And maybe you convince me, maybe I convince you. But nowhere in there blockchain show up
Okay.
because it's not sustainable. And that's the main reason. It's not sustainable. We need something like that to be more sustainable. And eventually we'll get it. But blockchain is not the answer to that one.
So when you say it's not sustainable, are you referring to like the energy consumption or the other reason?
Energy consumption, it takes, there are different schemes. There's the first blockchain, which was share your work or something. And if you put something in the blockchain, you get validated by all these guys, they make money and stuff like that. That's not sustainable. The energy consumption is huge. It's too big. And there are other things. They're coming up with, share your work, pretend you do your work, and dance around doing your work. But none of those are as strong as the original one, and so they're easier to cheat. And the thing is, look, we made an app. That doesn't include blockchain. What it does include is at the beginning, there are 3 things that we need to go through before you get accepted into a community. First, you have to tell me who you are. That's an explicit profile of, oh, I like hot food, or I don't like hot food, or whatever. The other one is we have to show you who we are. We have impact, purpose, and mission. And we have to share that with you so you know what we're trying to do, what we're trying to do it, and how we're going to do it. And the one in the middle is relatedness. It's a hard word to pronounce, but it relates to how you now we have your profile going to relate to this. Now we have the explicit alignments. What's the relationship? Because some people, like you said, they may not want to be part of this, they may want to be part of that, they may not want to be part of this, they may want to be part of that. It's up to people's choices, what they choose in the relatedness. But there's 3 separate things. It's you, something else, and how you relate to that. And we put you through that, and then you're part of the community. Unless you say you want to kill people, and then you're not part of the community. And that's that. There's no blockchain or in technology behind it. And is it cheatable? Probably. We're going to find out as we spread it out and stuff like that. But let's find out and not react to our fears. Oh, people are going to break it to make it super secure. Bullshit. Let's see what happens, and we'll fix it, and we'll fix it, and we'll fix it. um, or not. Depends.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that sounds really interesting. I love that idea of keeping it simple like that.
Keep
That's makes a lot of sense.
Once it's not simple, people don't trust it, and they speak about it in whispers in the hallways, or try to game it. And what we're trying to radical is, no, you don't need to game it. You can say, I don't like that part of it. Okay, you don't like that part of it. Can we live with that? Can the community live with that? Yes. Okay. 6 months later, the community says, no, that turned out to be too much. We don't want to live with that. Well, then they stop recognizing any contribution that this guy's making. And eventually it's going to go, oh, you're not going to give me a contribution. I'm going to go to another community and milk them for 6 months. Because, by the way, the rats that you gain in those 6 months are yours. There's no, we'll take it back and we'll hold it in escrow. Keep it simple.
Hmm. And so that's really interesting. So what I'm hearing you say is when somebody tries to contribute, the what is valued by the community is the things that you should be doing, right?
Yes.
So if I join the community and do things that people don't really value, they won't send rat my way, right?
Right, but you can always ask why I did this. How come?
Yeah.
Well, because the code is too complex, or you bending the metal too many ways, or whatever. They
Hmm.
give you feedback, and
Yeah.
you should act on that feedback, not say, "Well, that's shitty feedback."
Hmm.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
If you do that, you won't get any
So,
contributions recognized.
all right. So Matt, I'm curious about how could this apply in a let's say in a very simple manufacturing environment, right? Let's say there's 40, 50 people that are there and they're let's say they're bending metal, right?
Mhm.
How might they if they started using rads, how might that help them make a more human centered workplace?
Well, for example, tools. Some people take the tools and they throw them back at the end of the shift.
Hmm.
But there's somebody else who actually puts them in the right place, and that's a contribution. I would
Hmm.
see it as a contribution. Other people may see it as a contribution.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
and by the way, all these contributions are public. So me, if I were somebody else and I look at all this contribution going to this guy, I would ask why. And then he would tell me, or somebody else would tell me, well, it's a contribution because he puts the things there. We can save money on the guy that's comes at night and places everything in place. Um, or a simple example, which happened when I had hair and I was a young guy. The guy, the guys from the front desk, from the front office, will come and leave a bucket of parts that were supposed to be qualified or inspected or something. I don't know. But it would leave the bucket right in the hallway. And the next morning, the people would come in, pick the bucket, and put it in a very special place for the bucket. And I noticed that, and I asked them, how come you moved from there to there? And they wouldn't do anything all day long until the end of the shift. And I go, how come you move it? He said, well, is the problem with, it's in the middle of everybody's way. And two, it's easier to list the part, look at it, and put it in the other bucket. I go, oh, so why don't you tell the guy to put it there instead of there? He says, with that, he ignored us. And he's the boss. and and I and so when I would see him come down, I would say, go put it over there. Go put it over there. And it wasn't my boss, it was somebody else's boss.
Yeah.
And eventually he learned to put it over there. that was the end of the summer when I left. So maybe he went back to the old ways. But people learn. People like to learn things. When I told him the story, oh, it's easier to pick him up and da da da, he kind of went, oh, I hadn't even thought of that. I'm thinking, they told you. What do you mean you hadn't thought of that? You disregarded what they told you because they work by the hour worker, and I'm a salary worker, and therefore I can tell you things. So you listen more carefully. But regardless of that, that's what I think now. God knows what I thought then. But regardless of that, is people like to learn. That's one of the contributions. So somebody had seen me done that, he would have said, "Oh, Matt, I'm going to give you 10 recognized contributions for talking to blah 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 about this and that and the other," because now he puts the bucket in the right place, not in the wrong way. I wouldn't have seen it as a contribution back then. They taught me that that was a good act. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. So it's people like to learn. I mean, I'm talking to a college professor. I shouldn't say that, but uh, they that's the only way to grow is to learn, and you learn things that you wish you could unlearn them, and but mostly you learn things that you go, yeah, meh, or wow, I didn't think of that. You know, the inquiring about somebody's date, how come you're so sad or whatever, is important. I didn't think that was important until somebody did it to me, and I went, got the help. That really helped. I was feeling like crap, and now I'm not feeling like crap. And that's all of those things are truly important. Are things that you learn because you're either lucky like me, where our family was very involved in everybody's way of doing it, and I thought it was too much. It's like, here comes my grandmother again, and all that. But that's important because some people never had that when they were little. So, anyways, I think we have to make okay. I have to make an announcement, and then we.
All right, all right. Well, it was a pleasure chatting with you, Matt.
No, it was a pleasure. It was a real pleasure. You're the perfect participant, asking questions as well as getting questions. So next week's guest, I'm reading, is Carmen Sita. Not Carmen Sita, Carmen Sita. There you go. Carmen Sita, VP of National Sales at Randstad USA. Okay. And she's going to talk about the radical way of creating wholesome workplaces and culture. This should be interesting because national sales at Randstad or anywhere else is a usual, it's a usual thing. It's the most fiat thing I can think of. But she obviously had a different way of looking at things, and we're looking forward to looking to get her views on things. So, Christian, as I said, it has been great. The questions that you asked were wonderful, and we'll probably have you back at some point. What are you doing these days? Are you doing anything with Semco or?
Right now, I'm doing actually a workshop series with the graduate university, the Fielding Graduate University, with my colleague Eliza van Beyer. And we're doing that's a monthly 2-hour session that we organize to bring people together to just discuss future of work, hybrid working, self-management, also how do you navigate change, right? It's something that's always now a topic, and it's just something that people have to be good at. And
Yeah.
a big topic is for us as well when we return to the office, right? How do you bring more voices into the room, right? How do you really involve people in these decisions, right?
Yes.
We hear it from the banks, even a lot of tech companies. Apple is in the media. SAP was a big case just recently where they said, "Hey, we believe only in the office can we grow our culture and mentor people." And it's kind of ridiculous because from what I hear, SAP is less hybrid now than they were before the pandemic, right? And
Yeah,
and so to me, it's just interesting what kind of beliefs does a CEO have about how teams work? And they had over 5,000 employees that signed a letter that protesting against these kind of decisions, right?
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. What CEOs should be asking is, how can we develop our culture remotely? Because that's where we're going. I got a Vision Pro from Apple,
mm-hmm,
and right now it's a little bit heavy, too heavy in the front. Although it's okay, it's not like it pulls your head down, but it's a little bit heavy. And and I got to practice more at driving things and stuff like that. But that's the way that things are going. I got this displays like this wide, well, this wide, and that's gonna go away. I'm gonna put my glasses on. I'm gonna be seeing all the displays all around me. I'm gonna be in a cocoon of space. Uh, so they should be asking, okay, I got a lot of real estate. I got to fill it up, or otherwise I'm paying for empty air, which is probably what CEO is thinking about. But he's got to be asking the question of what's the future? What does the future bring? What the pandemic showed us is that the office is the past. We don't know what the future is. Nobody's thought about what comes next. And but that's what we should be thinking of. So,
right, right.
all
Well,
right,
exciting times are ahead. Yeah.
all right. Bye. And now we have to wait for Carlos to give us
All
the.
right. We'll see you later. Yeah.
Don't log out. Don't log out. Uh, Boom. We're